Don't worry, I got it. Okay, there we go. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode of the Extra Credit Book Club podcast, where we let fate decide what books we listen to. Sometimes it works out in our favor.
Most of the time, it's to our detriment.
Many a time it has been to our detriment.
Mhm.
This week we're back with more Legend of the Galactic Heroes, which is turning out to be like far and away the most popular series that we've got on YouTube.
Yeah, against all odds.
I don't get it. Not sure
Not mad
why,
about it.
but yeah, I'm not mad about it. And this week we read chapters 6 through 8.
8. Long ones. Very long chapters this week.
Yeah, but they weren't. Well, chapter 6 was a bit of a hassle. I had to restart it about 4 times.
Yeah, it took me like 4 hours to get through an hour and a half long chapter.
Yeah, and I think it's purely because the first couple of times I had to restart it, I was entirely scatterbrained that whole day. I couldn't focus
Mm.
on nothing. And it made listening to a book impossible.
Yeah, I was deep in Stardew that day and I kept getting distracted because that's been my tandem activity for listening. And I just kept getting preoccupied.
Yeah, that's kind of how it went with me as well. I have to do something else while I can't just sit and listen. I have
No,
to
me
be
neither.
playing something else, and
Mhm.
nothing was. My focus was just everywhere but the book. What?
Yeah. It I've also randomly found out, like, if I don't have headphones in, I don't listen as attentively. If it's just on my speakers, I'll tune it out, like
Hmm.
it's background noise.
I've never tried that. I always have it on my speakers.
Hmm. Just a weird thing I learned.
But eventually, we did get through it, and then the other 2 chapters as well.
Mhm.
And chapter 6 is a weird one, if only because there's a lot of. It's like a debrief chapter.
Yeah, it's very, like, interlude feeling, like
Like, it starts out with members of the Galactic Empire's Admiralitet.
how do you spell that? How would you spell that if you had to? I looked up the word on Google and it just kept saying admiralty.
If I had to spell it, it would
Is
be
it a real word?
Admiral Tiet.
Oh, okay.
Or, yeah, something
I
like
was
that. I don't
thinking,
know.
like, Admiral and then I and then Tete, like French for head.
Like,
Literally, I don't know, I get really, like, pressed about words that I can't envision in my head the spelling of,
right.
and that's why I've struggled with audiobooks in the past because, like, I've spoiled myself for things unintentionally, like, looking up the names and spellings of, like, characters in the
Hmm.
book, especially this one, but most of the stuff I spoiled for myself was stuff we'd already watched on the show, but,
Right.
like, I need to know how things are spelled, otherwise, like, I have a small crisis.
I find myself getting spoiled in a similar but slightly different way. In that if I'm reading a paper book or listening to an audiobook and I don't know what the word is that I'm looking at, I can't just like finger press it and look it up, the definition for it, like on my Kindle.
Right.
And I never realized how much that feature I truly needed in my life until I don't have it.
Mhm.
But the uh the Admiralitet is doing like the bog standard. We are very sorry to hear about the capture of Isolon. It's truly terrible what happened. We're not at fault, by the way, because we weren't there, so we can't be blamed for that. And we're very sorry to hear about that. That's a terrible thing that happened.
Yeah, that's that's basically all they're doing. And this chapter is called "To Every Man His Star," but for the longest time, I thought it was called "Every Man is a Star."
Sure, I mean, kind of. In this book, everybody has their 5 minutes.
That's true.
Uh, but they give Reinhardt his own, because the Admiralitet was such a monumental failure in doing anything about Iserlohn. They're like, well, Reinhardt hasn't fucked up yet, so let's give him an Admiralitet and call it the Reinhardt Corps.
Yeah.
And
And he gets the
it's got Reinhardt Kirkheis.
mhm.
I think Ruenthal's in there.
Uh-huh. I wrote
Mittermeier.
it down somewhere. Some dude named Kempf.
Yes.
Um, where did I write it? There's like 7 of them,
Yeah.
something like that.
The important ones to remember are Rosenthal and Mittermeier, because they're like the two besties.
Yeah.
Um,
They're like the junior Reinhardt and Kirkheis, basically.
yeah.
Like, they're kinda like their own like, I feel like they're a little bit younger than them.
And with the formation of this Admiralitet, Kirkheis gets his own small little fleet, and the
Mhm.
book does a terrible, terrible job in glazing right over everything he does with this fleet, because he, like, stomps out a rebellion.
Yeah. There's like a noble called Castrop who ruled the planet Castrop, and he embezzled like a bunch of money from the empire for years and years, and he had recently died, and his son had taken over for him, and he was supposed to pay back all of the money,
Right.
and he was like, "I'm not gonna do that."
Yeah.
And so this rebellion had been going on for like 6 months or something like that, and Kierkeis was sent to stomp it out, and he does it in like 10 days.
Yeah.
Like, no problem.
Absolutely blows him out of the water.
Mhm.
And the book spends like all of maybe 2.5 paragraphs on it. I'm like, man,
Mhm.
poor Kirkheis. He gets no respect.
I know, 'cause all he gets promoted to, like, vice admiral, I think, and all the old boomers are so salty that he's such a talented boy because
Yeah.
he has, like, risen in tandem with Reinhardt because 'cause they're so close, and everybody doesn't think that he's, like or nobody thinks he's deserving of rising as high as Reinhardt, but then any chance he's given to prove himself, he, like, knocks it out of the park, and they're like,
Yeah,
"Fuck that
it's
guy,
very it's
he's too
very
good."
like classic aristocrat, where they're like, "Oh, he's just riding coattails."
Yeah,
And then he proves them wrong, and they're like, "Well, I just don't like the look of him."
yeah. Oh, and when Reinhardt is building his, like, dream boy squad of all of his Admiralitet,
Yeah.
he is really particular about choosing people that hate, like, born nobility, like,
Yeah.
old money nobility. He's like, "They need to hate them like I do to be part of my squad."
Yeah, and he really does build the dream team of, it's like a K-pop group of people who are raging against the machine.
Yeah.
Uh, but after Kierkeis has his little adventure quashing rebellion that was really just like one guy and a handful of ships,
Mhm.
we go to Reinhardt, and I forget the circumstance, but Paul
Oh.
Oberstein wants to see him,
Mhm.
and he goes to see Reinhardt and basically tells Reinhardt, like, "I'd like everyone out of the room, please."
And it's
And
just
he's
Kierkeis.
like, "The only person here, bro, is Kierkeis, and he is basically me. So even if you tell me, I'm gonna tell him as soon as you leave. So whatever you can say it to him as well." And he goes, it would make me feel better if he left.
Yeah.
So he's like, all right, fine. Kierkeis, please step into the other room. And Paul Oberstein basically tells him, like, hey, remember how I said I've got robot eyes? Well, if I was alive during Rudolph Goldenbaum's reign, I would have been killed under his, like, normies only protocol. So, I hate the nobility. They suck. I want them all dead. And
Yeah.
Reinhardt is like, how can you say this? Kierkeis, get in here!
Arrest this man.
Arrest this man! And Kierkeis is the fastest gun in the West, drawing his little blaster pistol down on him.
Mm-hmm.
Lightning fast! And Paul Oberstein, being the fucking dopest dude ever, just looks at Kierkeis and goes, are you gonna shoot me or what?
Yeah. Please shoot me. Don't arrest me. But you won't do it, will you?
Yeah,
And
you
that's why
won't do it,
fucking need
pussy!
me.
And then Reinhardt goes, haha, that's enough.
Yeah.
Paul, I'm gonna hire you. I like the cut of your jib.
Welcome to my staff.
So he, like, essentially buys Paul. He literally says buy in the book. But he's not a slave. Is he just talking about,
No.
like, buying his debt?
Like wages? Well, I don't even know. Like because Oberstein he deserted Iserlohn, and
Right.
he's like sentenced to die because of it or something, isn't he?
Yeah, it's like
Or
big time. He's big time under arrest or, like, wanted because he
yeah,
abandoned the line of duty, even though he knew which way the wind was blowing. He was like, fuck this, I'm out of here.
yeah,
And I think they just, like, purchased his, like, just bought his debt, essentially.
I guess, yeah. I think that's what it was. Um, but the way like he pitches himself to Reinhardt additionally by being like, every light needs a shadow. And
Yeah.
I'll be that guy.
Yeah, and Kierkeis is not pleased. He's like,
No, Kierkeis is the goodest boy, and he does not like shady business happening,
you
like,
can't trust this guy, Reinhardt.
no.
And Kierkeis is getting the exorbitant descriptions of his appearance now.
Oh my god. Is this
It's
when he
like,
talks about, like, his hair is like molten lava and
yeah,
how Reinhard always describes Kierkeis by his hair, and in the moments where they used to fight as boys, which was very rare, he would be like, "What's with your hair? It looks like blood."
yeah, got him. Nice one.
Yeah.
It's really weird. And, like, even as grown men, Reinhardt just, like, tussles his hair.
Yeah, he, like, pets him a little bit, and then oh, no, he, like, does in my mind's eye, he, like, tucked Kierkeis's hair behind his ear for him
I wouldn't
and
put
was
it
like, "Oh
past
my
him.
god, your hair is so pretty, it's like a burning flame."
Yeah. But basically, Paul gets hired by Reinhardt because Reinhardt likes that he hates the admiral, or not the admiralate, he hates the nobility and the aristocracy as much as he
Mhm.
does. And he wants to see him crumble. So he's like, you know
Yeah.
what? You'll do fine in my squad, amigo.
Yeah, and Kierkeis is like, "Are you sure you can handle this guy?" And Reinhardt's like, If I can't handle this one guy, how am I gonna be emperor of the entire universe?
Yeah.
So, I have to at least try."
And then a whole bunch of things are like the current emperor. Because I think Kierkeis goes into a bit of a reverie. No, Reinhardt does. Because he's mad that his sister is still, like, primo A1 with a bullet, concubine for the emperor.
Yeah. There's also I think what leads to that moment is we get this little episode with the 3 directors general of the Imperial Armed Forces, and we get a little bit of background information about this, how the last time these 3 separate offices were held by the same person, his name was Crown Prince Ottfried,
Oh,
and
that's right. Yeah.
now, like, these guys are just all acting prime ministers. It's just giving us, like, a bit of information about, like, the ceremony of all of these different positions, and the 3 of them basically pretend to resign because of Iserlohn and losing it, and the Minister of State is like, "Please don't do this, you guys. If you do it, I'm gonna have to give one of your offices to Reinhard, and I do not wanna do that
Yeah.
because we hate this
He's
guy."
already got too many offices.
But they do it anyways, and then Reinhard is summoned by the Emperor to pick which of the 3 offices he wants to do, and he's like, "Well, I'm not gonna take an office that I didn't earn. These guys shouldn't be punished for what von Siecht and von Stockhausen were responsible for." And they're surprised that he doesn't take the office, and they are just basically they are told to give up their salaries for 1 year, and they're all so rich that they won't even notice that their salaries aren't being paid for a year, so
Yeah.
it's really just like a slap on the wrist. But then the emperor's like, "I gotta get back to my greenhouse now. I gotta go look after my roses." And then the minister of state follows him to secretly talk about how he's worried that the emperor is giving too many accolades to Reinhard. And the
Yeah.
emperor's like, "Oh, so are you worried that he might get too ahead of himself and like plan a coup?" And the minister's like, "Oh my god, I dare not even say the words." And the emperor is kind of just like tending to his roses. He's like, "Would it be so bad if he did? Like, my dynasty could die with me, and I wouldn't be that mad about it. Like, would you?" And the minister of state's like, "How dare you?"
You
Like,
can't
he's
say that.
so upset that he, like, runs away. Like, he's so horrified. Um, and then I think this is when Reinhard starts, like, thinking more about Kirkai's hair and
Well, he
what made
also
Rudolph such a bad emperor and things like that.
they also go into all of the fucking children the current emperor has had.
Mhm.
And it's like I think it's like 28 children that he's had and only 2 of them are still alive.
Yeah, he's had really
And they're
bad luck
both
siring an
girls.
heir. He had worse luck than fucking Augustus of Rome had trying to
Yeah,
get an heir.
just shooting
Like,
blanks.
yeah.
And like the way that the narrator read it was so like he was reading from a historical document. He was like he had over 28 children, but over half of them never saw a single day.
Yeah,
And only 2 of them made it to adulthood but were killed in action or some stupid shit like, and it's like, bro, you're having too many fucking kids.
please stop. Like, just give up. But Reinhardt is like, "I'm so glad he didn't try and get my sister pregnant because she was too important to him to die in childbirth," basically. And he'd learned from all his other mistresses that, like, something bad would probably happen if Anne Rose got pregante.
Yeah,
And
he's
he's like,
got that.
"Thank fuck, I would have never accepted a child by that piece of shit."
Yeah, something wrong with the Emperor's cummies that he just kills women. Childbirth.
I
Because
hate the word "tummies." I I
I
hate it.
apologize.
No, you don't have to apologize.
But then we switch over to the Free Planets Alliance, where this is where every single time I restarted this chapter, this is where I start to get hazy. Because they're having like some kind of council meeting or like some vote on something, and Trunicht
Well,
is being a shady cocksucker as he usually is.
oh, that's right. I think before that, there's a little tiny snippet of, um, Fazan, and the narrator started doing, like, a fun Russian accent during this
Oh,
part,
it's
which I
not there
found
yet.
interesting.
We're still in
Oh, it's
chapter
not?
6. Yeah, Fazan is chapter 7.
Well, there's a little part in chapter 6, in part 5,
Yeah.
where Rubinsky it's before, like, the council meeting, I think, with the
Oh.
Alliance, and he's just thinking about how the Alliance is, like, floating on inertia. It's really only, like, a very small thing. He's just reflecting on, like, the state of the Empire and the Alliance, and he's like, their conflict is really good for business. The Alliance, if they had a super charismatic leader who would rise up, then maybe everything in the alliance would be chill again. And he's like, I wonder if anybody would ever try and stage a coup in the empire. And he like phones his assistant or somebody to like crunch some numbers on the likelihood of it happening. And I think that moment is just meant to give us some like insight that Rubinsky probably can figure out what's about to happen. Like he's intuitive or insightful enough to
Yeah.
like read the situation. But
It,
then we go into like this decision room and the alliance meeting and
yeah. But
all that shit.
it's interesting how it's almost done in a sort of like comedy way that like moments before the emperor is like, oh, I wonder if Reinhardt would ever stage a coup. Like just moments before he was in a private room going, I'm planning a coup.
Yeah.
All it needs is a smash cut.
Mhm.
But yeah, we in chapter 7 we get more juicy playing both sides against the middle business with Rubinsky.
Mhm.
And yeah, he sends off this is to crunch numbers, and then for some reason it's mentioned that he counts his mistresses in the dozens.
Yeah. Okay, there's a quote. I think we still have some of chapter 6 to get through,
Okay.
but there's this guy in that moment. There's a quote that I fucking loved, and I need to find it when he's counting his mistresses. I'm gonna find it in here. Um, oh, they describe it as with a cheerful smile bordering on audacity when he's asked that question. Um, but the um the very last pieces of chapter 6 is there is an alliance meeting and all of the committee chairs where they list off every committee chair, the council chair, the vice council chair, the clerk, the defense committee chair, the chair of natural
That's why I
resources,
zoned
human
out.
resources chair, and the economic development chair. And they're all talking about how there's a proposal to use Iserlohn as a base to invade the empire, and they're also trying to crunch numbers and figure out how to afford the war and afford an invasion. And there's this new councilwoman whose name I don't remember. It starts with a C, but she's like, we have a duty to bring down the Galactic Empire and rescue all humanity from its oppression. And she doesn't think they should take time to recover from all of the lives they lost at a start. And they start going over all of their approval ratings, which are fucking abysmal and in the like 31% or something like that.
Right.
And they're like, well, if we do a military victory in the next 100 days, our approval rating could go up by 15% at a minimum. So we should definitely invade the empire to win this next election. And then there's like a little moment at the end where he's like, by the way, we're rejecting Yang's letter of resignation and he's going to be a vice admiral real quick.
Yeah.
And then we get that little episode of Yang trying to take Julian out for a nice dinner and not having made a reservation. So they're stuck at that shitty table until Frederica Greenhill summons them over to her table with her dad.
Yeah, who's like a big hotshot admiral.
Yeah, he's like, "So, have you ever thought about getting married?" And the two of them, like Frederica and Yang, both screech their knives across their plates.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, why are you asking that?"
What do you mean? She's my subordinate.
But they
No,
both like
she's like
know
his
Julian.
assistant.
Yeah, his aide de camp, which is a thing I didn't know what that meant until we read this book.
It's just like a military assistant, essentially.
Yeah, someone you like confide in and tell your secrets to. But, he's out with Julian, and Yang famously doesn't remember any of Julian's accolades or achievements, and he's just
Yeah.
very indifferent to them. But both Frederica and her dad are like, "Oh my god, Julian, like, you are, like, a local celebrity." He's like a regional celebrity the way that, like, a local theater actor is, where
Right.
he, like, has a bunch of, like, sports awards and, like, school awards. And they're like, "Oh my god, like, it's so good to meet you, Julian, like, great work. We love what you're doing." And Yang's like, "How do they know you?"
Yeah. What do you mean awards?
Mhm.
Where are you getting awards? Like they all laugh about how Yang is a negligent adoptive father.
Mhm.
Isn't that funny? And he's like, no, really, where are you all day?
But in his defense, he's, like, very quietly supportive in a way that like, he's the opposite of overbearing, which is kind of nice because he just doesn't care, but
Yeah,
he does unconditionally support Julian in his own way because he's like, "I don't want you to have to go into the military if that's
right.
not what you wanna do. I don't care if I have to pay back all the child support that the military gave me to look after you, like, whatever you wanna do, that's what you should do, and don't let, like, my career influence you
Yeah.
at all." And that's kind of sweet.
Yeah, and he does care about Julie. Not like he doesn't. It's just
Mhm.
he has no concept of what Julian is doing from day to day.
No, has never known. It's like, "How old are you again? What grade are you in?"
Yeah. But I think I think we're in chapter 7, right?
Their last little bit is Yang and Julian trying to go home in a self-driving taxi, and then the taxi stops, and there's a huge traffic jam, and it's because they don't have enough workers to fulfill all the automated tasks, like something fucked up with the planning of the routes of all the automated taxis or something like that, because all these people are dying in wars, and they're like, "We haven't
Right.
filled the vacant positions yet." And then Yang and Julian decide to walk home, and Yang has this, like, very wistful moment where he looks up at the stars, and he's like, "Every person has their own star that they look up at each night and, like, make a little wish or something." And I thought that was a very uncharacteristically, like, wistful moment that Yang had, and I thought it was
Yeah.
kind of funny.
He always came across as more pragmatic,
Mhm.
not someone who looks at stars and goes, someone out there is looking at the same star as me. Shut up.
Yeah. We're all wishing on the same things. But now we're in chapter 7.
Which is one of my favorite chapters so far.
Really?
If only for the fact that it's so poignant. Because it is essentially the Alliance War Council inventing reasons to inventing reasons and justifications for those reasons to invade the Galactic Empire.
Mhm.
And all of them are so flimsy. They're like, well, we need to liberate them from despotism, of course.
Right.
And they're like, and they'll welcome us with open arms because they're stuck under the tyranny, and this'll all go great. And they're like, okay, well, what about supplies? And they're like, don't worry about that. That won't be a huge issue.
We'll figure it out as we go.
It's a very like their planning of this invasion is the most American thing that I've ever seen. Like just them inventing, like it's so close to they have weapons of mass destruction and we're gonna
Yeah.
go get them. That's why we're invading.
Mhm.
That it hit a little too close to home. But it also amused me because the Alliance is operating under this idea that because they captured Iserlon Fortress, that suddenly the Galactic Empire is in a weak enough state that they are on the ropes.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, this invasion is going to be so fucking easy, bro. We're going to go over there and just knock them over like dominoes. It's going to be a joke. We're going to be like Berlin by Christmas.
Yeah, it's very, overzealous, and there's this other conversation on the Empire side where the, Imperial Minister of Finance and the Minister of State get together to, like, drink wine and have a little gossip,
Yeah.
and I think they got information from Rubinsky about the fact that the Alliance is probably gonna plan a little invasion soon, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Who should we assign to our defense?" They're like, "Ugh, the golden brat will probably wanna do it." And they're, like, weighing the pros and cons about whether or not they can handle how much more insufferable he'll become if he wins and what kind of repercussions he'd face if he loses. And they're like, "You know what? He's probably not gonna be around for that long. So, let's just let him have it while we've got him. Like, while he's got his vigor and energy and he's doing pretty well, like, let's just give it to him, and we'll just when he dies or whatever, or is disgraced, then we'll continue with what we were doing."
Yeah. My notes ran out. I must have blacked out again because after the alliance like war planning, I have no notes.
Well, Yang is like, can any he knows that the only reason that they're planning this invasion, somebody told him, I think it was Alex Kazerne. He's like, "Oh, by the way, the only reason that these guys are planning this invasion is because they have shit approval ratings and they wanna win the next election." So Yang
Oh,
knowing
that's right.
this in this meeting where they're all giving these puffed up speeches about liberation and freedom, he's like, "Can anyone tell me why we're doing this? Like, what's the real objective?" And everybody gets really heated, and this guy's like, "Frankly, if you don't like the war, like, you're on the side of the empire."
Right.
And Yang, like, retreats into his mind's eye, and he's, like, just fully dissociates for the rest of the meeting, and he starts reflecting about, like, weapons and power and how Archimedes of Syracuse, which the fucking Audible narrator pronounced Syracusa, and I had to rewind it, like, 3 times because I was howling. And like he is just truly taking every liberty he sees fit at this point with
Yeah.
pronunciation. But then the meeting ends and having like borne no fruit as far as Yang was concerned. And then he meets up with Sidalay, his boss, who's like equally not into this invasion at all. And he's
Right.
like, "Listen, the reason I couldn't let you retire is because I had a feeling something like this was going to happen and we need you. Like, we need reasonable, smart people to get us through this and limit the amount of casualties that we're going to have." And there's this guy who's Yang's opposition, and I can't find his name in the like Wikipedia for the thing, but it's pronounced like fork, and maybe it's just fork. But I was like,
Yeah,
surely no one's name is
I
fork.
think it's like work.
But it's yeah, for all intents and purposes, this guy's name is Fork, and he's a little bitch, and
Yeah.
he's very incompetent, and he was one of the people giving, like, unprompted soliloquies about the glories of war,
Right.
and Yang is like,
Democracy is
"Listen,
so
man,
dope.
yeah, I just wanna do the least amount of work possible and live a happy life. Does that make me lazy, yes or no?" And Sidolay is like, "Yeah, you're just, like, lazy by nature, but we need you, so you can't retire."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, I
He
guess
gives him
I'll
he's
stay
like,
at work."
you are lazy, but we need lazy because this
Mhm.
ambition is going to get everybody killed.
Yeah. And the last part of chapter 7 is Reinhard and his K-pop boy band, Kierkeis, Mittermeier, von Ruhenthal, Kemp, Wittenfeld, Lutz, and Valen were the other ones.
Bittenfeld, that's when
Um,
I forgot.
He's giving them a little pep talk about how this is gonna be, like, super honorable, like, defending the empire against this invasion, and also a chance to take accolades away from the highborn nobles, and they're all like, "Fuck yeah, fuck those
Oh
guys."
yeah, can't wait.
And then there's this moment where he gives them all this smile that's full of charisma and energy, but it's not the same smile as the one he only gives to Kierkeisen
Yeah, of
and Rose.
course.
Every opportunity to illustrate the special relationship between Kierkeis and Reinhardt is taken, and I'm so here for it.
Right. Which literally just amounts to Reinhardt smiling like a professional to his like troop of boys and
Yeah.
then smiling with his teeth around Kirkison and Rose. Like that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's a
Unless it's
special
some kind of
smile.
like seductive erotic smile.
Maybe. You never know.
Could be.
But yeah. Reinhardt details his plan a little bit. He's like, we have to lure them deeper into the corridor because they think he's like, we have to lure them deep into our territory.
Right.
And like that's the opposite of what they'll expect we do. And Mittermeier's like, that's all well and good, but like, won't that take fucking forever? And Reinhardt's like, nope, it'll only take 50 days. Hit it, Paul. And Paul gives his little like plan of details, and we don't hear the plan, but we just hear about the expression on all the boys' faces being like wonder and awe and shock.
Yeah. Paul Oberstein, which is like this book's version of a mentat.
That's a good way to describe it.
He's crunching them numbers.
With his little cataract robot eyes.
Yeah. That glow when he gets turned.
Yeah.
No, they flash. They don't glow. They
Right.
they like shimmer.
Yeah. I picture it like when I look down the hall and I see my cat in the dark.
Oh
And it's
yeah.
just his eyes, and he's just like two eyes in a void.
The laser
That's
eyes.
that's what I picture.
But the plan of luring the Alliance deeper into their territory is so like based on how the Alliance has acted in every battle so far, it'll take less than 50 days. Because they don't think anything through. They're just like, aha, we've got him on the ropes, boys. And then they get absolutely bodied. Which,
Yeah.
speaking of getting bodied, let's talk about Chapter 8. Because the invasion begins. And Yang, with his 13th fleet and his very special Hyperion flagship, everybody pushes into the Galactic Empire's territory. And they just like the first planet they see, they're like, we've conquered it. And they go down and gather all of these villagers around them, and they're like, don't worry, everyone, you've been liberated. Congratulations, you're now free of tyranny. And the villagers are like, huh?
Do you have any food?
You guys have food? And then it dawns on them. They're like, oh no, we didn't think of how we're going to supply any of this.
No, they didn't think any supply chain logistics through at all.
No. And immediately, the invasion force falls into shambles because they have to start moving food to these, like, villages. Like, it immediately falls apart. Like, communication breakdowns. Like, ships are not where they should be. Food is weeks late. And
they have 100 million people to feed in like 2 days. And they're like, oh, yeah. And they're already concerned about how they're going to afford this war simply from like a military budget perspective.
Right.
And without even factoring in the cost of food and getting the food to now 100 million people that they have liberated.
Yeah. And I think, I don't remember which admiral it was, but it was one of the incompetent ones. He essentially sends message back to Alliance Command, and he's like, yeah, hi, we've got a lot of hungry people here, and we need food, real bad, real quick. And they're like, well, you're just going to have to acquire it on site.
Yeah.
And he basically being told, in order to feed the villagers, they're going to have to pillage the villagers to feed them.
Yeah, plunder.
The biggest brain move I've ever heard. It's infinite food. If you steal their food and then feed them with it, they'll never go hungry.
True.
And this is even before they come in contact with any of Reinhardt's boy band.
Yeah, they don't come into contact with them until they've already decided that this whole thing is a
Yeah.
mess and they should go home.
They're like,
Like,
this is not working.
yeah, they start, like, reevaluating why they're there. They're like, "Should we, like, withdraw?" But the pro-war faction is so embarrassed, and they're like, "If we don't get one military victory, we will not win this next election.
Yeah.
So press on, boys." And I think we cut to Yang, who's having a conversation with another commander who I think are, like, the descendants of Mongolian horse lords or something like that.
Yeah,
And
he's the direct descendant of Hannibal.
oh, okay. So, uh, what was
Also, they're
Carth Carthaginian elephant lords.
right. There's also the
So
moment when sort of the general public finds out that the invasion is going very badly. All of the politicians are like, "Oh my god." All of the politicians that were like, "This is the greatest plan that I've ever come up with." As soon as the public finds out, all of those politicians are like, "This is outrageous. Who came up with this plan? I can't believe this."
yeah. Yang's like, "If we withdraw right now, the enemy will probably attack us as we're retreating because it's a fast retreat. Like, it's too early, technically.
Yeah.
But because we fucked this up so bad, we should probably go." And he's like, "We should withdraw while we have the chance before we've totally exhausted our supply lines because as we can see, they are fucked and no one thought this through.
Yeah.
And they are going to come at us with everything they have." And
And
in his mind, he's like, "Well played, Reinhard. Well played."
yeah. But Big Swinging Dick Fork is like, "We can't retreat when there's been no battle."
Oh my god. Yeah, Yang's like, let me talk to Admiral Bucock because if Bucock makes the call to Iserlon's Supreme Command, it'll sound better coming from him because nobody really likes what I have to say. So
Right.
I'll tell him. And Admiral Bucock's like, "Yep, for sure. I'll relay the message." And then he calls Iserlon and he's met with Fork, who's just like, "Well, I wouldn't withdraw if I was you."
Yeah. How can you retreat from a battle that hasn't even happened? Sounds pretty bitch to me. Keep going.
Yeah.
And Yang is like, "Okay, dickhead. I'll call." I forget the name of the admiral, but he's like one in charge of the whole invasion force
I think it's Bucock.
because he tries to go over Fork's head to call Bucock, and that's when he gets the, "Oh, sorry, the admiral's taking a nap right now. He can't talk."
Oh, I thought that was Bucock calling. Because I think how I read it, and I could be wrong, is that Bucock calls Supreme Command and he can't talk to the Supreme Commander because Fork's in the way. And he has his little battle with Fork, and then Fork does his thing. And then he talks to this other guy who's in charge, who's like, "Oh, no, sorry, you can't talk to the Supreme Command because
Right.
he's taking a nap."
He's having a
I
little
don't
snooze.
think Yang is involved in this conversation. I think he
No, I think
passes
you're
it
right.
over to Bucock to call on
Yeah.
his behalf so that they don't tell him to fuck off and die, basically.
It's
But
definitely Bucock who calls him because Yang is like, "I'm not going to be the one who says it because no one likes me."
exactly, yeah. But this was probably one of my favorite altercations in the chapters that we read because Fork, we find out, has a rare neurological disorder. And
Oh, right.
Bucock is like, by the way, he's like, so Fork is like, "I wouldn't retreat if I was you." And Bucock's like, "All right, bitch, why don't you trade places with me for a day? I'm sure we could figure it out so that you'd be in command for a couple of hours. See how you fare." And he goes like his eyes lose focus.
He like
He
becomes rabid.
his face has like confusion and terror spread over his features. He raises his hands over his face and then he screams and collapses.
Yeah.
And Bucock is standing on the other side of this conversation for 2 full calendar minutes while medical officers run around. He can't see Fork. He's like collapsed out of screen. And he's like, "Can somebody tell me what the fuck is going on here, please?" And this medical officer stands in and he's like, "So Fork is temporarily blind because he has essentially a type of hysteria where if people don't feed his ego, agree with him at every turn, and never make him feel
Yeah.
insecure, he will like go catatonic and blind and not be able to recover until his ego is fed. It's like white boy hysteria where
Yeah.
like he's so fragile that he cannot be questioned in any capacity or he throws a fucking
Yeah.
fit.
Completely shuts
And
down.
it's like feeling of frustration or failure cause him to become abnormally agitated. So the medical officer's like, okay, so like if we are going to cure this episode he just had, we need to win the entire war, go along with his whole plan, make him feel like the smartest, most brilliant boy in all the land, and then he'll feel better. And it's like,
I think Bucock just goes goodbye and hangs up
yeah,
on him.
he's like, can you make him resign then? But then at the end of the conversation, he's like, can I please fucking talk to the commander? And that's when the guy's like, sorry, he's having a nap.
Yeah.
And Bucock's like, what the fuck did you just say to me right now? Like, it's not even a question. He's just so done with this conversation. But I had to listen to that part like 4 times because it was so entertaining to me.
So good. That a man who, like, someone doesn't say yes to him and he becomes a rabid animal.
Yeah. And the only cure for him, instead of like cocaine and vibrators like they gave hysterical ladies in the 1800s, is like rest and relaxation. You just need to make him feel like a special boy
Yeah.
again. Make him feel
Take him
good.
to mini golf.
Yeah.
Let him win.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I think they are like, all right, fuck this. We're out of here.
Mhm.
And they decide, and that's when Reinhardt and the boys strike,
Yeah.
which is precisely when it's least convenient. And once again, the Alliance gets absolutely fucking ramshackled
Mhm.
because they didn't think anything through properly. They
No.
it's so outrageous. And I think like Ruenthal and Mittermeier like tag team, they like high five
Mhm.
on their own separate ships and then just
Mhm.
like lay the smackdown on like 3 different fleets.
Yeah, and I think Kierkeis goes and fucks up the supply chain run they're doing from Iserlohn to the
Yeah.
planets. And Kierkeis was like really not down with that plan, but and Reinhardt knows it, but he's like, this is to win, just so you know. Cause like Kierkeis isn't down with making civilians suffer for like all of
Right.
the things. It's an Oberstein plan, basically. And Kierkeis is like, okay, I'll go do it. But yeah, he fucks up their whole supply chain. And I think this is when he has like all of his boy squad over with their little wine glasses and they're like,
Yeah.
let's have a toast,
And they'll have a
boys.
little cheersy.
Yeah. And then they smash their wine glasses on the floor.
Yeah, in true European tradition.
Hmm.
And that's pretty much where it ends.
Yeah, Yang has like a little fight with Kempf, I think, and they're he's doing the best out of anybody in the alliance because he does a little half moon formation or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, there's a little episode though where it's like they're called the Spartanians, and they're like flying
Oh yeah, the
around
little
in these.
jet fighters. Yeah.
Yeah, in my mind at first it took me a while to realize they weren't in like Gundams. I don't know why
No,
my
they're in
brain
like
went there.
little fighter pod jets. They're very
Okay.
weird. They look like eyeglass cases that just fly around and shoot
Oh.
missiles and lasers.
Yeah, and I think they're just, like, chirping each other, and then they all die. and I don't know what side they're fighting for.
I think the Spartanians are with the Alliance, because one of them is like, put the champagne on ice, bro. I'm gonna shoot down 10 of
Yeah,
them. And the guy's like,
right.
man, shut the fuck up. You'll get a glass of water and like it.
Yeah.
And then,
I think
like, that whole
one of them has,
squadron
like
just gets lit up.
yeah, one of them has, like, really bad aim, and he blames the, like, technician who serviced his
Oh,
little
yeah.
plane thing. He's like, "You fucked up my aim," and he's
Yeah,
like,
and a fist fight ensues.
"Uh" Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very embarrassing for them. Oh, but Yang gives an announcement, when he's in his fight. He's like, "Attention all ships, run away."
Oh, yeah, that's how the chapter ends. He says, run away.
And they
Just get out of
do.
here.
Yeah.
Fuck this.
And, oh, he gets an order, um, as he's trying to get out of there, and he gets an order to, like, to cease combat immediately, change course, and regroup or something and leave, and Yang's like, "Fucking easier said than done," and in having to follow this stupid command he gets, he loses, like, double the casualties that he had before,
Yeah.
just trying to get out of there. And I think Reinhardt has a little moment of, like, victory or something, but my last note is a quotation where he says he was scratching with well-formed fingers at the golden hair that spilled down from his forehead to his eyebrows. There's a lot of description of Reinhardt's hands and his fingers and how nice they are,
Yeah.
which is, like, very female gaze of the author.
Yeah, it's the most female gaze directed at a man, written
Mhm.
by a man.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, like, male gazes male. Like, women, fuck them, dude.
They're barely in it.
Don't even talk to me about women.
Mhm. No one cares, like, Reinhardt and especially Kierkeis do not care how any woman views them or how popular they are with the ladies or what the ladies say or think about them. Kierkeis is like, "This heart is spoken for. I only care about Anne Rose and Reinhardt," and, like,
Yeah.
Reinhardt has this is the same. He only cares about Kierkeis and Anne Rose.
Even, like, Kierkeis is almost literally the only character that has any, like, romantic designs.
Mhm.
He really loves Anne Rose. And Yang, I think, used to have romantic designs. Like, he's like, yeah, I dated a girl in college once and it didn't work out, so I guess I'm done.
That's it for me. She married my best friend or got engaged to my best friend,
Yeah, and now
and then
he's
he
dead.
died, so
And now she's, like, on a watch list for the Proud Boys
right.
because she spoke, like, she talked shit to Trunick's face and embarrassed him in
Yeah.
front of, like, the whole world.
Yeah. "Get this woman out of here, play the anthem!"
But that's it. The
Mhm.
conclusion is next time. Hedge your
And it's
bets.
shorter.
Yeah, we've only got 2 chapters next time and a little epilogue. But place your bets now for just how fucked the Free Planets Alliance will be at the end of this.
Mhm.
But yeah, we'll end the episode there. There.